we're witnessing an unprecedented turnout of individuals who are aspiring to contest as the country's next corporate CEO or president. Now, from well-known and well-oiled political game masters to state governors, cabinet ministers, businessmen and women, as well as industry professionals, the list of presidential aspirants is getting longer by the day. Sumner Sambo is Arise political editor and has been keeping track of those whose names are on the list of those who wants to become Nigeria's CEO in the 2023 election. Sambo joins me now from our Abuja studio. He's here to help me separate the noise, the news, and the rhetoric on the political train. Good evening, my friend. It's good to have you on the show tonight. Sumner.
Thank you so much, Bosun. Good evening to our viewers.
Thank you so much. We're trying to do something here to separate the news from the noise and the rhetoric. That's what we're trying to do tonight with you. So I'm sure, do you have a list of, how long is the list right now? I lost count, so I stopped counting those who are aspiring. I'm sure you have a list somewhere of those who wants to become Nigeria's next chief executive officer, effective May, June the 1st next year. Who is on the list?
Well, if we are to go party by party, I can tell you that the list keeps growing, and with the INEC window getting closer, the major political parties have already ended their sales of nomination forms. So it's the minor political parties, if we may call them that way, that are still trying to get people on board to purchase forms. So we can safely say that more than 80 persons across political parties are trying to seek the position of Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at the moment. And this is actually a very high number compared to previous elections. And then, of course, we can attribute this to the fact that it's a succession presidency where we are not having the incumbent contesting. The last time we had this was in 2007. When former President Olusegun Obasanjo was on his way out. And we couldn't have it in 2011 or 2015 because we had incumbents contesting, and similarly in 2019 there was still an incumbent contesting. So when you have a succession presidency like this, of course the turnout will be high, and then people just want to try their luck, and then you will have contenders and pretenders. So I'm very sure we'll hit about between 80 to 100 pretty soon.
Interested if you have 80 individuals right now saying, I think I can wear the shoe of the president for 2023 moving forward. Do you think the president's order asking aspiring office holders to resign, do you think has cleared up the list a bit, or you've had a few folks drop off the list and then some others were joining? I've seen a few faces on your television or your show here on the channel, and I'm wondering, I've seen some folks who are CEOs of oil companies and all of that, and everybody just popping up. Some of them I never even knew they existed.
Yes, of course. This is what you usually get when it's a succession presidency, and people are not being intimidated by the fact that there's an incumbent on the ticket. And so it gives them the boldness to want to share their ideas, to want to seek the office of the president. It's been an interesting thing because we've seen members of the federal cabinet coming out to say that they want to boldly contest, and just when they are faced by the realities of, pursuing this presidential ambition, they are beginning to step down one by one. We've seen the likes of Temipre Silva, who's the Minister of State for Petroleum, dropping out. We've seen some other top persons, dropping out. I don't want to just call all of them because Nigerians are very familiar with them. But what we haven't seen is people, just ordinary people who haven't been on the political scene for some time dropping. Many of them who are coming out from outside the political terrain are showing some ambitious desire to actually succeed the president, saying that the politicians have failed the system. And the general view of this political outsiders, if I may call them that way, is that politics is too important to be left to politicians alone. Because when I speak with some of them, they keep telling me that the Nigerian economy has gone beyond the issues of having politicians take control. But in reality, I can see that it's even the regular politicians that are beginning to actually bring out some very strong economic policies. Because when you interrogate some of these persons who are coming in from the outside, you see them saying that they don't have an economic blueprint at the moment because, I mean, they still have to be going to delegates to seek votes. But you see that some of the regular politicians around like Atiku, Tinubu, Saraki, you talk about Yaya Bello, you talk about Peter Obi and all of that, they already have some design blueprint and they're already talking about the policies that they may bring out. But actually, with the way politics is being played at the moment, they are aiming to speak with the delegates of the party and not Nigerians, because it's only when they clinch their party's tickets that they can start speaking to Nigerians. But it's been good to see that even though they are speaking with their party's delegates, they are actually presenting some form of economic blueprint. Because, I mean, Bosin, like we've seen lots of analysts saying, this is not the best time to be a Nigerian president if you don't have a blueprint.
Well, if you talk about economic ideas, everybody seems to understand and know what the problem of Nigeria is. The solution is what everybody's looking for. The whole idea of Hail Mary, those days looks like it's gone based on what you're saying, because I'm interested in saying, look, what are they saying through the news? You've done quite a number of interviews, and out of about 80 people out there, if you interview one on a daily basis, you've got to do 80 days before you can go around all of them, and there could be more. So this is a very busy time for you, my friend. So I don't envy you as to you need to comb through all of these folks trying to understand what they're saying. So what is news and what is noise and what is rhetoric from everything you've heard from the aspirants in terms of their understanding of what needs to be done to steer the affairs of Nigeria? Some folks talk about, oh, insecurity. When I get there, I'm the best man or the woman to handle it. And I'm sitting somewhere watching television, and I said, oh, okay, so what's new here?
Okay, boss, and some of these presidential aspirants are just rehashing some of the things that President Muhammadu Buhari had said on the campaign trip between 2015 and 2019. They will tackle the economy, they will tackle insecurity and corruption. But when you go into details, asking them how they intend to do that, some of them are just lost. They don't really have the concrete details. And some of them actually have done very well into researching that, having had think tanks. For example, you have Peter Obi. Peter Obi has been going around the country and he's been saying that, look, the country is not investing so much in terms of job creation, and that we need manufacturing to be expanded in this country for it to have industries that, for example, can take 5,000 persons at once, 10,000, 20,000 persons. That's the fastest way to get jobs.
Okay, so did Peter Obi, for example, did Peter Obi, did he say exactly how he intends to do that, rather than saying we need it, but yes, you need it, but how is he going to create that job? Did Peter Obi ever say anything about that? Does he have a concrete plan? How is he going to create those jobs? What sectors? What businesses?
Yes, when we question some of the statistics and figures that he keeps bringing up, the areas that he said that he would really focus on is in terms of agriculture. For example, he was giving the example of Vietnam, giving example of countries, including like Kenya, how, for example, they could actually be making exports in billions of dollars.
I like those examples, and I'm going to respectfully quote it into this. Let's take this conversation a bit further. Hold those thoughts there. We'll talk about the economic renaissance when we return. Everyone, stand by, stand by all our viewers. We'll be right back in 2. All right, political editor Somna Sambo is out the thick of the race to Nigeria's 2023 general elections, with so many aspirants expressing their desire to become the country's next chief executive officer. But what are the aspirants saying about the country's wobbling economy, high unemployment, inflation, exchange rate, and inefficient energy sector, declining foreign investments, and a whole lot more? Thanks for standing by, Somna. Let's continue the conversation. And you're talking about the idea, Peter Obi, one of the presidential candidates, saying, look, there are examples of countries around the world, Kenya, Indonesia, whatever, how they are creating jobs. But Nigeria has specific problems and issues around job creation. So do we have just rhetoric, examples, or clear blueprint of how to create jobs, for example. 35% at the last count, that is really, really big.
Yes, I mean, the politicians actually know that the job ahead is very, very tough. Some of these presidential aspirants are beginning to put together some teams to help them research into the issues currently facing the country. And some of the issues that have really struck me very well are, for example, the issues raised by presidential aspirant Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress, which is the ruling party. He actually talked so much about increasing food production and lowering consumer prices. I will just quote what he said here, that there's a need to return the commodity exchange boards to ensure that there's a minimum farm income. And then he's also talking about reforms are needed to give farmers more access to credit by loosening mortgage requirements and allowing greater leeway to execute forward contracts on what they grow. Now you go to someone like Atiku Abubakar of the major opposition People's Democratic Party, he is saying that the exchange rate of the country is not good and that the country is not earning so much forex, and that you have the official figure of the forex, for example, a dollar being at about 418 naira officially, but when you go to the parallel market, the black market as we like to call it here, you see that it's around 580 to 600 naira to a dollar, especially this period between now and the next 2 weeks. That something needs to be done about it. So it looks like
Atiku Abubakar roll out any plan of how he intends to get the naira a whole lot better? You can quote numbers and I can do that. But does he have any idea? Has he put any idea on paper, on table to say, look, this is how I intend to move the naira back from 600 naira perhaps to $100 or $200 or 200 naira to the dollar? Does he have any crunching numbers on the table? Or it's just rhetoric?
Yes, I mean, his policy, for example, actually aligns with that of Bukola Saraki too, who has rolled out what he calls Fix Nigeria policy, and he intends to see how he can combine the country's industries together to generate more exports, and that when we generate more exports, you would eventually get more foreign exchange coming into the country. Now, this aligns with what Atiku Abubakar himself has said, that the problem that we have right now is in the issue of forex liquidity, that our liquidity is very, very low because we aren't exporting so much. It's only the crude oil that we're doing, and then considering the problems that we're having in the Niger Delta with stolen crude here and there, we've had our forex being depleted at the moment. So if you look at it, you see that there's some synergy between them as to agreeing that, in fact, what we need to do right now is to drive more exports to be able to have more foreign exchange. That, for example, you see someone asking for $10,000 and then the CBN saying that they only have like 1,500 to 2,000 US dollars to be able to give to them. And so there's a problem here of demand and supply for forex. And so what they are saying is that if only we can expand our exports, that it will be better for us. Now, the other issue that we have is the issue of the moribund assets that we have in the country. And Atiku actually leads that particular debate, saying that he's still insisting that he will sell some of these moribund national assets, like the refineries and all of that. But some other persons are saying that, look, it's not just about selling, it's about productivity. And that someone like Peter Obi saying that while we are focusing more on production, that we should reduce the sharing, because the problem is that even from the little that we are producing, we are sharing so much and there is no saving for the rainy day. I mean, he kept on going ahead to say that, look, when Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was the Minister of Finance, he himself and some other governors like Akeredolu of Ondo State and some other persons were vehement in saying that, look, Nigeria should actually save more for the rainy day. But unfortunately, some governors then, including some who are gunning for the presidency right now, refuse and saying that we must expend that. So if we're able to conserve some forex, it will be easier for us to be able to invest, and then you have some liquidity within the system. But the major problem, according to some other presidential aspirants, is inflation.
Do you believe these folks who are aspirants, or you think they're just trying to sound very nice into the sound box because that's what the people want to hear, that's what the delegates want to hear? Any one of them that you think sounds like the right guy for this very tough job?
Well, we seem to be having those sort of discussion, but unfortunately, Nigerians are not really paying attention so much to some of the rhetoric by these presidential aspirants, because we expect more Nigerians to question some of the figures being thrown at them, whether by Peter Obi or Bukola Saraki or Yaya Bello or Tinubu or even Professor Yemi Osinbajo, for example. Now, the question should come to Professor Yemi Osinbajo, having been the one that's chairing the National Economic Council, to ask him what has he been able to do to create jobs and the issues of the policies that they have, the social investment program, because this government actually prides itself as having invested so much in the social investment programs other than any government. Now, Professor Yemi Osinbajo is at the heart of that. Now, there should be more questions as to how we've been able, what we've been able to achieve right now, what is left to be done, and why there seems to be more hunger in the country when we have those programs going on. And then the issue, the very big issue, economic issue that's on board here, which the presidential aspirants are actually running away from, is the issue of subsidy. And when we as journalists keep asking them, what do we do with the controversial issues of subsidy that's taking a lot of our foreign exchange and then, you know, putting it all on consumption, some of them just give answers that you cannot really coordinate properly because they don't want to offend the public by saying that they will totally remove subsidy. Don't forget, President Muhammadu Buhari had promised total removal of fuel subsidy, even describing it as fraud at some point. But we are surprised that the APC government, entering into its second term, has continued to maintain this policy to the detriment of the larger proportion of Nigerians who are losing so much from infrastructure development that could have come from the savings made. And so the debate is still ongoing, and the presidential aspirants are running away from what should be done. For example, the Petroleum Industry Act has actually said clearly that NNPC shouldn't have anything as a private company to do with subsidy. But here we have NNPC as a national oil company still paying subsidy. So how do we go about, you know, removing the state from involvement in subsidies? And then there's also the debate whether we are channeling subsidies into the right places. Some persons are actually saying that the place that we should be putting more subsidies into is education and agriculture. The agriculture, for example, has been deprived of subsidies. I mean, while the Western nations keep funding their own agricultural companies and all of that. And so it's a debate that we hope that more Nigerians will keep asking questions when the right time comes.
Do you think there is more noise than news right now on the state of the economy among the aspirants? And do you think as the list of the presidential aspirants will trim down a little bit to real contestants in a few months' time?
Yes, there's so much noise at the moment, and some of the presidential aspirants too are also not bringing out the economic blueprint fully because like one of them, when I asked him, where is your economic blueprint? He told me that, well, based on party politics and the structure of politicking, if you may call it like that, in Nigeria, at the moment they are supposed to be speaking to party delegates, and that sometimes it will be scary to party delegates if you go about bringing out top economic issues, because party delegates do not understand some of those issues. So what they understand is the socio-political aspect of why we need to have a nation that is one, why we need to curb insecurity, and why we need to have a society that is free from religious interference, and why we need to promote our secularity more instead of the religious things that we have that are really disturbing us right now and people thinking emotionally. So while that person, for example, may have a point, but nonetheless, I think the major challenge that lies with them is that if the economy does not grow and you don't have enough enough resources to solve these problems, I think these socio-economic issues will just be pointing straight at us. For example, look at the teeming population that we have. Why are the presidential aspirants not talking about our population? Because our population seems to be a heavy burden right now on us. Yeah. Our GDP is shrinking. It's not growing. For example, can we have them talk about giving us $1 trillion economy in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years? When you raise some of those issues, how our population is also depriving us of the benefits that we would have been getting if we are not overpopulated, you see them trying to shy away from it because there's a nexus between population and then religion and culture. So it's a big issue, actually.
Yeah, very big issue. Let's leave it there for tonight. Sumner Sambo, Arise political editor. Keep an eye on the 2023 election train for us. As always, we're checking with you in a few weeks' time. Thank you so much for your time this evening.